me be a little less cosmic. I never had the slightest belief in the New World Order, and it failed in almost precisely the ways I thought that many people predicted. But one has to be very careful about American power. And let me just confine my 7 minutes largely to the military dimension. We have exactly one meaningful, evolving competitor. And that is not necessarily an enemy in any sense. That is China. We do not have a recovering Russian military structure. We do not have emerging third world military powers which present a serious challenge to the United States. We do not face any of the tensions we had in Europe in the past. And for all the complaints about NATO, one has to remember there are reasons why France and Britain lead Europe by spending all of 2% of the gross domestic product on defense. The United States is not retreating from anywhere. It has put major resources into a new posture in Asia, basically moving its defense forces, its positions outside the area nearest China, and China has expanded its strategic reach. This is a complex debate over what is called the second island chain. It is not something I could describe in 70 minutes with any accuracy, much less than 7. But what you do not have is any decline. And you do need to remember that except for China, you have serious declines in North Korean force capabilities, serious declines in the defense expansion in most Asian states, a static South Korea, a Taiwan which does not spend on forces, and Japan which never spent much and is now dealing with the obvious problems of a major economic crisis. We are not retreating from anywhere in the Middle East. The effort right now, which is fully funded by Congress without dissent, has been to try to maintain a strategic framework agreement inside Iraq. The odds are not that good, but it is not because the U.S. is seeking to withdraw, it is because of the internal structures of Iraqi politics, and it is part of a much broader rivalry with Iran. Whatever happens, we will still maintain bases in Kuwait, bases in Qatar, bases in Bahrain. We have actually strikingly increased the level of cooperation with other Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And this has led to a major restructuring of their defense forces in cooperation, not overtly, but informally, with the United States. Actually, one of the most major sets of arms purchases that either country has made in something like the last decade. There are questions here that have to be resolved. The Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense has offered the Middle East in general, obviously the friends and allies of the United States, extended regional deterrence. That is one possible solution to the expansion of Iran's nuclear capabilities if they occur. We have very actively sought to have an expansion of missile defense capabilities, and those will in fact be deployed where they matter, which is in the theater. Let me say that frankly, I have never had great interest in the posture for missile defense in Europe, which to me has always been more political than real. People talk about defense cuts, but the cuts are almost all planned in the accounts which would affect the war in Afghanistan. Exactly why we are spending $127 billion a year on Afghanistan is an interesting question. But there are no meaningful cuts planned in what's called the baseline account for defense. And that is what determines America's contribution. And when you talk about a new world order, there is an interesting aspect of a new world order. We are averaging with 2 wars something on the order of 4.3% of the gross domestic product being spent on military forces. We spent an average of 6% during the peaceful years of the Cold War. Whatever the strains are on the United States budget and the deficit, they are not driven by either these wars or by defense. They're driven by entitlements and other parts of the expenditure structure. Do we face challenges from cyber warfare, from proliferation, dealing with new forms of counterinsurgency and counterterrorism? Of course we do. There's never been a static decade in the 50-odd years I have been involved in defense. There's never been a stable point of technology or a stable nature in war fighting or in the way we apply military force for symbolic or deterrent purposes. In that sense, the New World Order is almost certain to be the Old World Order extended indefinitely into the future. Do I know in 20 years where we will be relative to Asia and China? No, and neither does anyone else. And I think this is part of the critical problem we face. Prophecy is an exciting sport. It is also often grossly overpaid. But at least for the next half-decade, we are where we have already funded the program, and it isn't really